Would you come down to the podium, state your name. If you have something you'd like to say, please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less and use the microphone so that everybody can hear you. So the floor is now open. Seeing no one making a mad rush for the public comments, we will close that portion of the meeting. And at this time, I'm going to turn to Jessie Foster to see if she would deliver our Veterans Day proclamation.
I would be honored to, Mayor. City of Radford Proclamation, Veterans Day 2023. Whereas the citizens of the City of Radford and the United States of America live in freedom because of the contributions and the personal sacrifices made by those who have served and by those now serving in the armed forces. And whereas the words of the first Veteran Day proclamation signed by President Eisenhower still ring true, let us solemnly remember the sacrifices of all those who have fought so valiantly on the seas, in the air, and on foreign shores to preserve our heritage of freedom, and let us reconsecrate ourselves to the task of promoting and enduring peace so that their efforts shall not have been in vain. And whereas our nation has fought and continues to fight battles around the world for the ideas of liberty, freedom, and justice, whereas Virginia is blessed to be the home of more than 780,000 veterans and tens of thousands of military families, and the City of Radford has veterans from every branch of armed forces. And whereas we remember with gratitude those men and women who have served in the military with distinction and valor as sailors and soldiers, airmen, and Marines. And whereas as we reflect upon the enormous contributions made to our city, commonwealth, and country by the sons and daughters who serve bravely to defend the principles on which our nation was founded, we also pay tribute to a new generation of Virginians who have chosen to serve in the United States Armed Forces and remain committed to sustaining the legacy of unyielding patriotism. And whereas the City of Radford is incredibly proud and humbled to be the hometown of so many American heroes who serve as shining examples of honor, bravery, and service to our country. And whereas we will endeavor to always honor the contributions and sacrifices of the millions who have, over centuries, served in the military, as well as those presently serving both home and abroad. Whereas we are proud to recognize our country's and community's veterans and extend the appreciation to those who wear uniforms of the United States Armed Forces and serve on the front lines, preserving freedom and liberty. Now, therefore, it be proclaimed by the Mayor and Radford City Council that all citizens observe November 11th, 2023 as Veterans Day and appreciate the sacrifices and contributions of our veterans who fought for peace and to defend democracy abroad. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we accept the proclamation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. Thank you to all of our veterans for their service. Thank you for your service. Gary Harris, thank you for your service. Would you like to present that to Gary?
Sure.
Come on down, Gary. And I think a round of applause is in order. So we thank all of our veterans for their service. And, you know, there's so many holidays throughout the year where we talk about military service. Memorial Day is the day we remember those who passed in combat, who never made it home. Veterans Day is the opportunity to recognize all those who have served and especially recognize our veterans who are still with us as well. So I think that's an important thing for us to keep in mind. We are fortunate that we have the opportunity to celebrate a Radford business that has been going for the last 50 years, Southern Furniture. They told me they wouldn't be able to be here tonight. Karen McQueen, the owner, is taking care of her family. They're dealing with some issues regarding age, and she's working really hard to have this celebration as well as take care of her family, so our thoughts and prayers go out to them. But we wanted to present the proclamation nonetheless, because 50 years is quite a milestone and an important part of our community. Whereas Southern Furniture was established in 1973 as a home furniture and mattress business, and whereas Southern Furniture has been serving the citizens of Radford, the New River Valley, and beyond for more than half a century from their West Main Street location here in Radford. And whereas Southern Furniture is locally owned and operated and has a company motto of low overhead, low prices, and whereas Southern Furniture has helped families build and refresh the interior of their homes from bedrooms to living rooms and dining rooms to dens, and whereas these spaces enrich the lives of our citizens, helping them gather and celebrate, sleep and rest, and enjoy life. And whereas Southern Furniture team members make it their business to know everything about the best and most reliable mattress and furniture manufacturers available, and whereas the company works hard to bring customers the best in name brand furniture and mattresses at the lowest possible price, and whereas Southern Furniture welcomes everyone into their store with no pressure sales and always willing to lend a helping hand with your furniture selection. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the City Council of the City of Radford that Southern Furniture is hereby recognized for 50 years of service and dedication to the New River Valley and the City of Radford as they celebrate this monumental anniversary year. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this proclamation today. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Congratulations to Southern Furniture. We will take this by to them and do a presentation at the store to help as part of their celebration. At this time, we're going to move on to a presentation. So housing availability and affordability is a huge challenge here in the New River Valley. It's a challenge all over the Commonwealth and all over the country. But one way we have been looking to try to develop additional housing is with the New River Valley Housing Trust. So here tonight, we have a representative of the Regional Commission joining us to share some information about the New River Valley Housing Trust and what it's designed to do. Welcome, we're glad to have you.
Great, thank you so much. My name is Jennifer Wilsey, and like Mayor Horton said, I am from the New River Valley Regional Commission. I'm the Director of Housing there, and we have been working on a regional housing trust fund for the last year or so. And so I wanted to be able to share with you all an update as to what that is and what we've been working on. So I'm actually going to start by not talking about the Housing Trust Fund and going back a little bit further to the New River Valley Home Consortium. And that was created, it represents the entire New River Valley, all the local governments, and was formed in 2007 as a partnership where the New River Valley will receive an annual funding allocation meant for housing from the federal agency, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. That has gone up and down over the years, but currently the region receives about $600,000 a year. We take turns rotating that around, and these pictures are from Radford projects specifically. All of the Home Consortium's work in Radford has been in partnership with Taylor Hollow Construction, and they have taken many a vacant downtown building around both sides of downtown to do mixed-use housing and commercial spaces. They are beautiful, and they are highly sought after, and they have done really great work for the city. So as we go through the Housing Trust Fund work, we are in some ways building on the relationship and the goodwill and the impact that has already been taking place for the past 16 years with the Home Consortium. So the two things are tied together, even though they will come from different funding sources. Again, wanted to make sure when I say affordable housing that we kind of understand who we're talking about and what that means. So affordable housing is a pretty broad umbrella, and it can mean several different things depending on what we're talking about. Most of the work that the Home Consortium does could touch all of these types of households, all of these incomes. In general, it means any household that is earning 80% of the area median income or below. But it can be parsed out a little bit differently. When we say Section 8 or Housing Choice Voucher recipients, almost always that is a deeply subsidized, usually 30% of the area median income and below, which for the city of Radford is about $30,000 for a family of four. On the other side of the spectrum is when we say low to moderate income, or LMI, and that can be serving households 50 to 80% of the area median income. And what that means in numbers for 2023 is for a household of four, up to $73,000 in annual income could qualify for one of our programs, whether that's homeownership or rental. And then you can see down there, the median income for the city of Radford sits about $44,360. So just giving you a understanding of the types of folks that we serve with this work, and it takes extra assistance financially sometimes to be able to pull off projects where we can offer a sales price or a monthly rent that still cash flows for the owner. And that's sort of the crux of wanting to start the Regional Housing Trust Fund, mostly because there's always more dollars that are needed in order to make good projects work. So I'm going to step into what we have been doing. Back in 2021, the state agency Virginia Housing, formerly VHDA, started a statewide grant program only to planning district commissions. And the New River Valley Regional Commission received a $2 million grant award out of that. It was meant for housing development. Now, having just finished our regional housing study, we wanted to use the opportunity of receiving $2 million in grant funds and use it wisely. And so we went back to that document and said, what can we accomplish out of this housing study that can then be funneled into this grant fund? And the Housing Trust Fund came to mind. And so what we decided to do is to use the $2 million to seed the trust fund so that everyone in the region could come together, think through rules, equity, what is eligible, and not have to touch any local dollars in order to test drive it. We wanted to use the grant funds so that it was a low barrier to trying it out. And so every local government has representatives, and Melissa is ours at the table for the city of Radford. So all the local governments have been meeting along with a lot of nonprofit and public folks. We have both universities at the table. We have both hospitals. We have several nonprofit housing organizations and many of the area's associations, home builders, realtors, Onward, NRV, all around the table to talk about how housing, or the lack thereof, is impacting the region and what can we do about it. And so this group has been phenomenal to help me think through what can be done. And so we also looked outside of the region. We looked at other trust funds, and we tried to take really good notes as to what best practices were out there, especially regional housing trust funds, which is new and which is more complex. But we thought the New River Valley has such a great history of successful regional efforts that why not this as well? So November through May, that stakeholders group was meeting, haggling through questions and all of the elements that come into making kind of the program rules, which is one of the benefits of a trust fund, because the money is both controlled and the rules are made by us locally, whereas federal and state funding sources are much needed. They're fantastic, they're wonderful, but they come with the strings of federal and state regulations. And we have noticed over the years that that creates some gaps in where we see boots on the ground our housing needs are. So this also gives that regional control over what the rules are. And again, back to the Home Consortium, we were able to look back and use that successful model to move this work forward as well. So out of that process, those 10 months together, we kind of came up with a couple of goals that we wanted, some of which I've already mentioned. More funds for housing. That was one of the largest goals. We wanted to be able to help home projects that were going to be funded. Every project, especially after 2020, needed more money to do the same work because of cost
Inflation, yeah.
increases and delays and all of those things. Again, the rules and requirements and eligibility would be made by us locally. Every locality would independently decide how they would like to use their funds, so it wouldn't be dictated by the group, and that we've also had really good experience working with the Home Consortium. Radford is one of the only localities who have gone very hard after adaptive reuse, mixed use, mixed income projects. Other communities have focused on homeownership or rental or homeowner rehab. The localities would still have their choice with this. We also played around with what is an ROI? Is it just financial? Is it having homes in our communities where we did not have homes before? And we're still toying with those things. As to whether grants or loans, I think, spoiler alert, it's probably going to be a combination, are going to suit our community best. And testing it this first time has been a great eye-opener for what our localities and what our developers are interested in, what they need. So it's been a really good fact-finding mission for that. And then again, the emphasis that building this both programmatically and financially is a public and private endeavor. It is not something we are trying to push on just the local governments. We are trying to get our public sector, our private sector involved as well. And they've been very active with us. It's been great. Fast forward to June, we finally had enough of a program design where we released a call for proposals. Because of the connection to the Home Consortium and the way that funding has rotated around the region, we hitched our wagon to that approach from the beginning. So Montgomery and Pulaski were the localities of focus, which means the next funding round will again circle around till every community is able to participate. And we received a proposal from each community. We ended up funding both of those, $850,000 to a project in the town of Pulaski and $950,000 to a project in the town of Blacksburg. These both just so happen to be larger scale multifamily rental projects, but we did not give a restriction on what type of project we wanted to see. These total 106 new units coming to the New River Valley, which we know we need. And so that takes us through to today, where I am, working with your staff and staff in the other localities in the New River Valley to kind of have these conversational sessions where we're giving you an update of where we came from and where we're trying to go into the future. And so you all are actually the first ones that I get to come and chat with. But we just wanted you all to be aware and hear from us directly. I know Melissa and David have been keeping you up to date. But we are looking towards some level of a financial sustainability to be able to ensure that we can keep rotating these funds around. And so those are some of the number crunching that is happening. So I have sort of an example of, and really this is more of a description of some of the methodology for how do we fund this thing than the exact numbers quite yet, but we do have a sort of a strong methodology that I just wanted to briefly let you all see. And again, we started with somewhat of a similar basis as to how the Home Consortium is both funded and the funding moves around. So we looked at several different annual allocation models and settled into this $600K a year. And if that sounds familiar, that is what the Home Consortium is receiving right now. So it would sort of mirror that. And then backing into that, both from a half and half public, local government investment, and we're calling them non-governmental right now, But the universities, the larger employers, the healthcare institutions, there are models out there of successful trust funds who have used local and private sources to make their trust fund pot whole. So trying to look at it, 5 years is not a magic number, but it's the number of localities that we have. So in a lot of our housing efforts, we look in five-year chunks because it ensures everybody in the New River Valley gets a go-around. And then also including the fact that there's that $2 million housing grant. We have backed into sort of a per capita number since a lot of local governments are sort of used to that language. Again, this is sort of like playing out a methodology versus, I'm not here asking for dollars today. This is mostly like where we have been number crunching and stuff in our conversations. And this, if I can add one more thing, adds in the concept of a pool of local investment plus the home dollars that are already coming to our localities with no investment required at all. So those numbers in that second to last column are already happening. This is flowing through our localities every 5 years. But then to look at the complete award value as sort of like a built-in instant ROI where the localized investment plus the home investment really starts to have needle-moving numbers for localities as they're trying to think through projects. So I know that is a lot of numbers, but again, it's more about kind of the methodology where we're trying to think through an equity and everyone feeling like they have kind of a turn and are represented in the region. And I think that is all that I have for you today, but I'm happy to take any sort of questions.
Jennifer, thank you. You know, this is something that we've talked a lot about at Regional Commission,
Right.
and trying to figure this out for our scouts and for those who maybe haven't been as focused on this subject. The big challenge with the housing piece is not just housing. Everybody deserves a good home and all of that, but it's the quality affordable housing that's such a challenge. There's some substandard housing that can be found for folks that are struggling financially or are of a certain percentage of the average median income. And that's one of the things this is meant to do. One of the things we have to be careful about is, you know, often this is described as subsidized housing in a negative way. The Section 8 housing is a great example of that. I think that's vastly misunderstood, and that housing choice piece usually means that a family that couldn't afford a nicer quality apartment or home are able to step into that facility. Would you share a little bit about some of that and some of the different types of housing that we've talked about through these projects? I know the Legacy Project is a really good example because I think there's a lot of formulas that go into what dictate that for the occupants.
Right. So the Legacy Project, well, actually both of the projects that were funded, among many other funding sources, used low-income housing tax credits. Again, that is not the same thing as a tenant having a housing choice voucher, but the incomes being targeted are somewhat the same. So the home funds, the lowest incomes that are ever required in a home project, so some of these with Taylor Hollow, is 50% of the area median income, and then all the way up to 80. Low-income housing tax credit projects will sometimes reach deeper to that, many times 60, 50, and below. And many times these projects will be an example. There are a range of incomes. So they'll have a few units set aside for the deepest subsidy needs and then all the way up. And that's how they kind of, like any business, would run pro formas and calculate their operating costs. This plays into that as well because the rents are capped depending on the type of income you have. So The projects vary widely, but anywhere within that, typically 30 to 80% is what you will see. And then certain funders require lower or higher, depending on what their regulations are. So we are looking for the trust fund to be one of the layers in the many layers that it takes to make these projects work. We will not require as deep incomes or as low incomes as some of these, but we hope to be a flexible player as folks are looking, whether for rental or homeownership, to make projects work, because construction costs typically, we know what a very basic new house costs, and it's difficult for even a first-time homeowner who has been several years in the workforce, how difficult it is to get into a home. And so you take anyone who's making below that median, and it just becomes that much harder. So I think the idea is to be a partner with these and to serve as many folks in our community as we can. But yeah.
Thank you for that. And you've been working a lot with the voucher piece through social
Yeah.
services and all that. I'm sure you probably have some
I do have a
questions about
question.
this.
So I know you're talking about picking up the gaps, and I know in our community, we have a gap for even the people that would qualify for our voucher program. So we have about 150 families right now that do not have a voucher but would probably qualify. Are you talking with the folks at the Department of Social Services who oversee those programs to get some numbers on what barriers we're all facing internally with just the voucher program?
Yeah, I mean, the voucher program specifically is very challenging. I know that they just opened up the wait list for the first time in a long time, and the numbers of folks who, I think they got 1,300 applicants for 200 spots, or, the numbers are very stark. The beauty of connecting the work that we are trying to help build and the folks who are hoping to find it is that the developers we work with are very skilled at the marketing and outreach that it takes to find tenants for their spaces, and certain means of marketing and getting out to all of the agencies that would have tenants or access to tenants who would be looking for housing is a pretty important part of the dialogue that happens when we give developers those dollars. And so we are sort of relying on them to do that,
Because I know we want to
one-on-one.
pick up the gaps, but we have a lot of people that are right in front of us. They're not even falling in a crack, other than the fact that we don't have enough vouchers for them. So
Absolutely.
that's why I was just wondering if you were able to collect a number from the region, from them. And I'm glad to hear that you're working with them, because I know they're all very stressed about this too.
Add, on the home consortium part of it, Vicki Collins from Social Services also is the other representative from the city.
Perfect.
So she has a lot of input and insight on the work on the home consortium side, which currently.
Right. Great. She is certainly a wonderful advocate. So wonderful. Thank you.
What do you have, Seth?
So, I just kind of want to make sure that I know that was just kind of a projection, but an investment would probably be like a $23,000 a year from the city, and then over a 5-year period, we would get $92,000 back to us, and would we be able to use that? So, would there be an application process, or how do we determine? Do we determine where those funds go as a council, or how does that work?
Yep, you're the expert now at.
So what we have been doing for the home consortium is we put a RFP out, request for proposals, to get ideas on upcoming projects. So it really just depends on the response we get from that. We're expecting potentially our next home round about 2028, I believe, is our next round. So we have some time to really look at what areas we have to develop, which is, certainly has been a challenge. We have a few property owners who own a vast majority of developable land in terms of new construction. So really just working towards getting this finalized. And when a couple years out, is when we normally go out to do the RFP to give us time to determine the right project to fit.
But it is open to renovations and new construction as well?
It is. And as a example, both projects that were funded, one is brand-new development and the other one is a renovation. So we'll be able to see both sides of the end use and the end project. And Seth, for your, we would get that 92,000 plus some.
Okay.
Okay, we'll have that additional to about a little over $1 million to be able to invest in a project.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You know, Seth, to your point, and Jennifer, you brought this up, so much of what we have tried to do is reuse things, and I know Planning Commission has worked significantly on seeing if there's zoning changes that need to be made and looking at our comprehensive plan to say these neighborhoods could be reimagined a little bit differently because we have limited space. And as you just said, there are a lot of people that own a good bit of the undeveloped land in Radford. Some of that doesn't come available for things, and if it does, it may not come available for affordable housing. It may be other projects. But I think working through that makes a big difference with us. Kelly, what do you have? Thank you.
My questions were answered. I think it's a great program. Thank you for coming to present it, and I look forward to seeing all the good it can do in the future.
Great, thank you.
Bobby, you have anything?
I just appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Well, and Jennifer, I thank you for all the work you've done. And of course, Melissa is our representative and working with all this stuff. You know, none of it is easy. And I think a big part is just what you did tonight, helping to provide more education about what this is and what the different types of affordable housing are and what that looks like to folks and how it can make a difference. I'm also glad you showed some of the pictures of the projects we've had in Radford because I don't think it always is what people think it is. When you see some of the projects, they're much higher quality than what a lot of folks imagine as affordable housing just in the broadest sense, and certainly different from what was constructed in the 60s and 70s and up into the 80s, where we were addressing affordable housing in Radford a little bit differently through some mass projects that were a little bit more unique than what we have today. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Great stuff happening, and you know, as you saw, there's money coming through even outside this housing trust piece where tax credits are being used and other projects are taking place. And in fact, some of the renovations going on in downtown on East Main Street are using some of that resource now to make good things happen. So a lot of good stuff happening. All right, Council, don't have any old business, so we'll move on to new business. And as we go through this, I'm going to try to explain a little bit so our scouts know what we're doing and that anybody that's tuning in might know what's happening. We do have a resolution for the Radford High School Foundation lease on the recreation or the George Street property that is used for the baseball field that's there. This has been going on for a number of years, and certainly the foundation has done an amazing job helping to develop that project over time. It's been renewed multiple times for 5 years, 2 years, and so on. The most recent renewal was in 2020. And then they've asked for another extension to 2024. Certainly this is a positive. The baseball team for the high school plays baseball there. I believe the JV team also plays at that site. And many, many rec teams and some tournaments have taken place there. David, do you have anything to add?
It's been the lease has worked out well for everybody. As you know, AD Foundation have worked hard to try to raise money. I think that's part of the reason they've been trying to do these extensions, is looking to see what other money they may be able to match foundation money to make the project continue to go well. They also do some tournaments outside, so it does generate some of that. So it has worked well, good partnership, and no issues with moving forward.
So to explain to the scouts why we're doing this, we have to approve this lease. The city owns this land, and we're the representatives of you as the citizens. The foundation wants to do this project, but because they don't own the land, we have to choose to lease it to them or do whatever we want to do with the project. So it comes before us, and we have to make that determination. So as such, I'll ask, do we have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the lease agreement extension through December 2024? We have a motion. Do we have a second? A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, legislative priority. Oh, sorry.
Just for the education of everybody, that project came about because the school board, foundation, and the city came together as a third,
Absolutely, and to that point, the baseball field was also a banned practice field, a field in track and field throws field, so shot puts were tossed out there, so big divots on the outfield of the baseball field and all kinds of stuff. So this is a great use for this piece of property. What a lot of people don't know is that is a former landfill in the city of Radford. That was landfill site, so it can never be built on because those continue to let methane gas come through the soil. Now, it doesn't hurt you when you're there, and it doesn't build up if it's open air. So it's a great use of this facility, but a lot of people don't realize that's what that was, and that's why we had that piece of land there. So fun facts. Legislative priorities. Our General Assembly will be going back into session this January. We have elections coming up in November. Our current Senator Travis Hackworth and our delegate Jason Ballard are our representatives for Radford. We have discussed multiple legislative priorities, particularly our West Radford Commerce Park and other economic development, trying to keep more revenue that's generated here. So revenue that's generated on cell phone towers, on alcohol sales, particularly liquor sales. That used to all come back directly to the community. That goes to Richmond. They determine how much of that we get. What we're asking is, would they be willing to put forward something that says the revenue that's generated in the community can stay in the community? As Virginia has some surpluses right now, that might be a possibility for us. Certainly looking at housing needs. You heard a lot that's going on with the housing voucher. Any additional state funds that we could get that would allow us to address blight and troubled areas. And property maintenance is a big issue. You know, in Virginia, as a Dillon Rule state, the local government is very limited in what it can do to address areas of blight. The General Assembly has been proactive on it in recent years. It's always been a condition of safety. If the building's going to fall on somebody, if there's something that's going to hurt someone if they're walking by in the public area, certainly that's something we can address. But if it's just unsightly, if things are broken, if they're not working properly, if it's blighted, we really can't do much unless the new caveats that the General Assembly put in the last 5 years were about drug use around the facility or gang violence associated with this facility. What we're asking is to give us a little more authority at a local level to deal with things like broken doors that stay broken for 5 or 10 years, windows that are broken and damaged, not just unsightly, but not helping the business community grow. Those are the things we've talked about and we're in general agreement about. Are there other legislative priorities we should advance on behalf of the city to our delegate and our senator to ask them to carry forward for us?
Well, we covered a lot of that. You
Yep.
summarized a lot of that for us. But a couple of things I know that we had mentioned that we would really appreciate some additional funding for is some of those parks and recreational activities that we've put on the back burner, as well as some of our Main Street initiatives as a part of that Main Street development. So when we talk about that economic development piece, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't bring that project up. So I think some of those projects we've put on the back burner, maybe move them up a little bit and ask for some assistance.
I agree. There's a surplus out there. We might as well ask for a little piece of it for Radford.
Yes, we should.
Any other thoughts, any other questions? Council, do we want to make a motion to advance these legislative priorities and ask staff to work with Senator Hackworth and Delegate Ballard as we move into General Assembly season to get these things moving forward?
Yes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and so this is where, so I mentioned Dillon Rule State. Dillon was a Supreme Court justice who made a determination that the only powers local governments could have were those that the state directly said, you can do these things. Virginia is one of the states in the country that does that. Not all states follow that, but because that's the case, the local government, those 5 of us sitting up here and the employees that work for the city, are limited as to the power that we have to generate revenue, to spend money, to make determinations for our community. And while that is great from a state perspective, that they keep a lot of those powers at the state level, that hurts us in being able to make some of the decisions we should be able to say, why can't we fix this? Why can't we make this better? And so what we're asking is for them to consider giving us a little more authority in some of those areas. Council, appropriation ordinance 1787.15 is a Virginia Department of Emergency Management grant in the amount of $30,000. The police department has received that grant, and it will support full-time and part-time staffing bonuses for the communication and dispatch employees. Chief, do you want to come up and talk about any of it, or does this pretty much cover it all? Okay. We have to do the appropriation, so just so you all know, the council has to appropriate all money that's spent in the community. And we usually do that through the budget process where we pass a budget in the spring. But because this wasn't programmed into that budget, it's a great thing that we got $30,000 additional dollars. We have to agree that it's okay for our police department and the city to spend that money. And so what we have to do is ask for a motion for appropriation ordinance 1787.15 in the amount of $30,000. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Now, typically, on anything we spend money on, we have to do a second reading or bring it up at another meeting so that, again, people can ask questions and do things like that. But if there are 4 affirmative votes, 4 yes votes to get that done, we can choose to do away with that second reading. So we'll accept a motion to do away with second reading if so desired.
So moved.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that's how you spend money as a local government. We just approved the spending of $30,000 for the purposes of giving bonuses to some of our communication and dispatch employees.
Quick question for the chief. I know that we had some positions available in our dispatching. How are we doing now? Do we need to put a plug out there that we're hiring, or are we all good with that?
So we're probably better than we've been in a long time.
Good.
But the caveat to that is potential future employment for those guys to come work as police officers with us exists. So we might very well be back in the same hole that we are, but I definitely love the fact that we're building with our own people and we're knowing what we're getting, and we're giving these guys who want opportunity to be police officers a chance to get their foot in the door and see what we're about.
So it's worth, when you're looking for employment, to check on our site. We often have dispatch positions open, and they often can lead to other opportunities to be a police officer. So,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Thank you. We also have another appropriation ordinance to consider, 1787.16, another grant from the Department of Emergency Management in Virginia in the amount of $5,000 to support the city's geospatial information systems mapping maintenance. That's an important part for the dispatch center as well. So GIS is a crucial thing, but you have to update it every so often so you know that it's accurate and you know that it's pointing people in the right direction. We don't have a local match, but we do have to appropriate the money. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. David, what do you have for us this evening?
Just one comment about that. I know Jerry will add to it. It's rare that we get maintenance money, so it's nice to see BDM provide us something, not only the equipment that comes along, but then the maintenance that is the ongoing expense that we have that goes with anything. So great to see that extra there. Keep that in mind in your legislative priorities when we're going through, because a lot of these things that you all see from time to time end up being initiatives. We want to make sure that there is the appropriate funding that comes along with that to help us out, so it's not all city costs, we are getting something.
And I was just going to say, a perfect example of that, as we have developed new areas in Radford, as some smaller streets have become bigger, as we built new houses, that GIS piece is that much more important, because when somebody calls with an emergency, that may have been an undeveloped field 5 years ago, and now it's got 20 houses on it. Go ahead. What else do you have, David?
Month of November, coming up, it's going to get really busy, starting with the Trick or Treat Trail this upcoming week, so check that out. Watch our website between Election Day, Veterans Day, and the Thanksgiving holiday. Some schedule changes, very, very busy month. Services will still be what they are, very active in keeping everything rolling, so just check our websites out for that. Also, leaf collection starts next week. Aggressive program, got fully staffed 3 trucks, so we hopefully can get everything picked up by the time we get to the Christmas holiday. We're going to do our very best
And we'll do that in just a few minutes. Thank you, David. Seth, what do you have this evening?
First, I'll start by thanking the Boy Scouts for joining us. It's cool to see the future leaders here joining us, so appreciate you guys coming out. Yeah, since our last meeting, I was able to attend Craft and Draft and the Highlander Festival. Both were very well attended. We were very lucky and fortunate with the weather. So it was a good day. The city had a lot of people in it. By all accounts, it was a win-win for everyone involved. So I thought that was great. I also wanted to mention and thank Charlie Meeks. So he's my best friend's father, so I know him real well. But he's been a longtime coach for not only the rec department, but the middle school and high school for over 31 years. And they just announced his retirement, and we're very blessed in this community for people like that who have served hundreds and thousands of kids. So just wanted to give him a shout out and thank him and for all he's done. For this Veterans Day, Gary was here. I was glad he was able to receive the proclamation. He does more for our veterans in this community than, but probably anyone that I know. Gary's a great guy and does a lot for that. So I just wanted to thank him for all he does for the veterans in this community. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Seth.
Yep.
Jesse, what do you have?
My moment of silence this evening was dedicated to everyone in war-torn regions in the world. We have a lot going on there. So I think most of us were able to attend the Hub ribbon cutting. So I think, is that their final event?
Well, you never know.
Just wondering.
We got some grants coming in, so there may be
There
some
might be
additional
some more.
parts that will
Wonderful.
whoop it up and
All
celebrate.
right. I'll get my calendar. Heritage Foundation, we have a lot going on. Mayor, keep me honest on dates.
Yes, ma'am.
November 25th, Small Business Saturday. December 1st, we have our holiday parade. December 2nd, Glencoe's 25th anniversary event will be happening with a little pop-up market. And then December 9th will also be a holiday open house. I believe they're having a pop-up
You're on it.
market for that, too. And to update everyone on the voucher program, so I will be meeting with Delegate Ballard and a representative from the Virginia Housing Authority, so we won't be able to move shells. We'll all be hearing the same message, so I'm excited about that. I will get back with you. That should happen Friday, so by the next meeting, I should be able to give you an update. And that's all I have today.
Thank you for working on that for us. Bobby, what do you have?
Once again, I want to bring up the Bobcats. 9-0, they play out of town Friday in Hillsville, play Carroll County. Once again, I'll echo what Seth said about Gary. I can't think of anybody more qualified to accept that proclamation. Great guy. I appreciate Southern Furniture faithfully serving Radford for 50 years. And that's a long time. Appreciate Jennifer's presentation. And we're talking about Veterans Day, and as far as my prayer, just I think we need to remember all the veterans and people that men and women that died for our country, and most of all their families. And appreciate. We also should remember and pray for everybody in the military, men and women alike. And so God bless USA. Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby. Kelly, what do you have for us this evening?
I missed the Highlander Festival, but I heard it was great. I've spent many hours at Craft and Draft volunteering and shopping around, and it was a really cool group of a lot of different vendors, and it was very windy, and everybody had their tents up, and a couple of times tents blew over onto other people's tents and knocked things down, and it was really great to see everyone come together and help everyone. So it was a great community event. I think everybody had fun. The music was phenomenal, and we sold a few waters and soft drinks, so it was a good time. I also wanted to congratulate Karen on her 50 years of being in business here. I've spent many an hour with Randy and Karen at the Applebee's, where they used to have, I've lost my train of thought. Trivia, yes, trivia night, many moons ago. So, and they're both have great businesses in Radford, so congratulations to them. I love Halloween, so everybody be safe trick-or-treating. Come downtown and go through the shops. And thank you to all of our veterans. Again, Gary is amazing. I'm glad he got to receive the award. And Jesse, thank you for meeting with Delegate Ballard. That's a very important issue, and I'm glad you're staying on top of it. And I think that's it. David, thanks for all your financial stuff that you do. And thank you to Public Works and the Police Department and everybody dealing with the wind and the leaves and everything going around the city. I know it's a busy time for you guys, so our streets always look great, so thank you for keeping us safe.
Thank you very much. And I'll say ditto to what everybody else said. We did have record turnouts for craft and draft. I know they were well over 1,200 and up close to 1,400 or 1,500 for participation, which is just outstanding. It was very nice, too, this year that donations were collected in memory of Matthew Brunner, who passed away recently, for his scholarship that'll be at Radford University. It was nice to see the community come together, not just to have a good time, but to celebrate. Kelly, I wanted to ask, did you sell out of all your magnets and stickers?
No, we still have some available. If you would like
So,
to purchase some from
McCarg
McCarg
PSA, if you need to adorn your vehicle or whatever with a Bobcat Rocking R magnet or sticker, they've got the fine selection. Because I was looking for one the other day, could not find one, got taken care of at Craft and Draft. So that was perfect. But that is certainly a big part of our joy right now to celebrate those Bobcats going 9-0. Hopefully, knock on wood, it'll be 10-0 after this week, and then they've got playoffs coming up, so there'll be a lot more fun with football. I want to give a big shout out to the Bobcat Marching Band. They went to another competition actually the last 2 weeks, and they've done well. They've been chosen best band at both of the last two competitions they've been to. They're just an outstanding group of musicians and artists and participants. They bring a lot of energy to anything they're a part of. We're really happy to see that. So great things happening in athletics, great things happening with the arts and the band and everything else. And also thank you to Coach Meeks. Thank you for bringing that up this evening. That's an incredible amount of service, and he certainly has set the stage for a lot of the success we see. So it's good stuff. I did want to mention that the Trick or Treat Trail is next Monday, so a week from tonight from 4 to 6 p.m. in downtown Radford. The businesses that are participating will have flyers up on the door, but you can go around in your costume and check things out. And I understand there'll be some Radford Trick or Treat stuff related perhaps, so you may be able to celebrate citywide with all that fun stuff. And all kinds of good things happening. We also had some really neat ghost stories at Ingalls Castle, La Riviere, the mansion on the river, a week ago Saturday, and it was the same day as the Highlanders Festival, a wonderful event that so many local folks participated in to help tell some of the Radford story and some of the spooky side of things. So that was really neat. They actually did a bus tour around some of the houses in Plan A and then moved down to La Riviere before it was over. Lots of good things happening. Again, I'm happy to see our scouts here. I do want to open up the floor. Do you guys have any questions about anything you saw tonight or want to know more about what we're doing?
Other than when it's over.
Yeah.
That's right. It's like, why are all these people talking? So just a little side note, when I was a scout working on my citizenship in the community merit badge, I came to a city council meeting back at the old city council chambers up at the municipal building where the courthouse is. And that's where I first started to learn about local government. And it was after that that I stayed involved because I said, oh, well, this is how you get stuff done. This is how things happen in our community. And I got involved as a teenager, and then as a young adult, and throughout my adult life, I participated with government. So don't let this be the last council meeting you come to. You can also watch us online if you're really bored and you want to watch YouTube and watch people sit around and talk policy and procedure and appropriations and all that. But this is how your government works. This is how your community happens. This is how we have roads and schools and lights and water and all the things that make your community go. And so we talked a little bit about that tonight. But we thank you all for coming out and really think through that citizenship in the community as you work on it. This is an important part. I think I'm going to come talk to the troop about it a little more, and we'll get into more questions. So come up with some hard questions for me. Ask me stuff I don't know, and we'll try to figure it out together. But I appreciate you all coming out. Now, one piece we have to go into, most of the things we do is what's called open session. That's what this is. This is where anybody's invited in and we have a discussion. There are very few limited things that we do that we go into what's called closed session, where it's just the council and staff working on some things, and we ask our citizens not to join in because there are certain factors involved. So, as such, I'm going to turn it over to Seth to take us into closed session.
I'd like to make a motion to convene a closed meeting for the purpose of discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purpose or of the disposition of publicly held real property, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A3.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?